Hello there. In this video, we're going to look closer on how clouds and atmospheres creating inside a Vue, how we can create a beautiful clouds, realistic, and also on optimizations and quality improvement of those clouds. Well, before we start it, let's go ahead and look a little bit on how actually it's work. It will help us to understand what we need change settings inside the Vue to achieve those performance. So right here we have it our camera and we have it our light. Usually if you have an object or anything in a real world, what's happening? The rays come from the light, they bounce out of object, and they come to our camera or our eye and we can observe. That is what will happen in real world. In CG world, it will be very not efficient. Because what about those rays that hit something and never camera can see? If we do this way, we still need to calculate them, and it will be take enormous power. So instead, what they decide in 3D, it says we don't do this way. We won't calculate lights that coming from the source. Instead, we're going to calculate lights and rays from point of the camera, because on this case, whatever is coming, it's meaning camera will see, and it's worthwhile to render. Well, okay, but again, you cannot render everything because the rays coming and they're bouncing from one object, okay? And for example, they're going to render from these. From other ones, they're going to render to more and more objects. And you need sometimes to draw the line, or you can do this to infinity. So what's happening in this case? Let's say right here, the camera see the particle. In our case, it's because volumetric materials inside the Vue, it's an area with calculating of light distributions or absorptions and other effect. So we call them particle, a specific area. Okay, right here we have it one particle, and ray from camera see this particle and calculate it. And it's give it default value. Let's say it's value 1, the most brightest, whatever we can have it, or darkest, whatever. It's the biggest value we can assign to this. From that point, we need to calculate next particle. Because it's volumetric materials, the particles not necessarily solid. The lights or rays can pass through them. They will modify, however, those rays. They will modify directions and modify the absorptions or power of this. In this case, we have a particle. It's come in. Just let's say, for example of this, it's only 2 splits happening. And right here we have it 1 power. So then next, what will happen? We'll have it another particle, so that will be highlighted. And notice, because the first particle absorb some of the light, and I'm referencing right now to the specific volumetric materials or translucent materials. So we have right here power absorption, so they have it less power because we split of energy. The next we're going and says, okay, what about if those ones will start going? Let's calculate next. And of course they will create more, and it's the power, less power with them. So you can see how it's creating this absorption as we're creating. But you know what? It can go on again so many times. After some time, the application needs to say, okay, right here is cut line. For example, we render only, in this case, 3 times. And after this, we'll just stop rendering. We just ignore all values, everything. But if you still have it a value, if you still have it energy right here, and energy or whatever the brightness, let's say in this case brightness, does not dissipate to the 0, then certainly you cut off and you have it gray, and certainly you have it black dot. So this would create the grain. Sometimes if you work before with Vue, you maybe notice how some objects have it nice, and certainly have these black dots or gray, or it's depend on materials and can represent a little bit different, including with reflections. And then what's happening here? And it's because the time when it's calculating how many times need going, it is have this cut off line at this time. It says, okay, it's enough, don't render more. We could fix this. We can increase this, how many times it's rendered. Well, let me give you another visual representation of how the cut off work as well. We're inside the Vue, and if we look right here on a camera, you can see we have camera, and up front of the camera and behind, we just have it simple panels. And I make panels by squishing the cubes. Well, they're nothing in our render because they're not reflective. Let's select these two cubes and we're going to switch material. And as material, we'll just have simple mirror. And as we're selecting mirror, you can see we have the reflection from one and another. And you maybe observe this in life. It's infinity mirror, this infinity tunnel. And infinity because you look and it's reflecting. In real world, we don't have it. As we know, we don't have it any cut off on how much it will be reflecting on the photons till they dissipate. But right here, you can definitely see, we have it one bigger reflection. Remember before it wasn't. We have another reflection, another, and right here, look, we have this gray box. And the gray box, it's a default whatever material was, where it's no reflection applied to this. To change this, we need to change how many times the light ray can go back and forward and render. And you can do this in multiple ways depending on what material we're using inside the view. Let's show one of them. If we're going inside the render options, let's go to user settings because I want access to the reflection trace. We'll click edit. And notice right here, we have it 5, 5. So it's maximum trace level 5 and 5. So it's meaning after 5 times, it disappears. Well, you know what? Let's go crazy. Let's go select 50. We'll have it. Well, technically, I don't recommend if you have it complex because remember, it's need to calculate all of this time and take quite a bit of this time. And we'll click OK. Here we have it our preview. Preview also set to the point it will cut off because you don't want in your preview window take forever to render because it is much less quality. And for this, we're just going to render this image very fast. And right here we start rendering. You can see we have our first pre-pass for our ambient lighting. And right here, it start rendering. Again, remember how many it may take a little bit time to render depending on your machine. Okay, after render is done, you can see we don't have that square. And look how many of those steps we have now. It should be about 50 or 100 because they're reflecting. This is a way we can increase. That is visual kind of representation how our trace will work. Now, if we look inside the volumetric materials and clouds, you'll notice the same things. We will have this cut off time when the distribution of the light will start cut off and creating this kind of grainy effect. Some quality support will work automatically for you. It's kind of built in some materials to make it much easy. For example, if we have it our sphere here, and I'm just going open material editor. And the material will going to the translucency. It's one of the interesting way. And we click and enable subsurface scattering. So if we look on subsurface scattering, what's happening in our preview, the light is coming and it's scattered around object. It's like a wax. I think it's one of the best way to represent how it's work. And of course, we have it here values of the 10 meters deep. We can reduce this depth, we'll make it a little bit shorter. And as we're making shorter, you can see light absorption faster. So it's a more dense material in some cases. And we can even do a little bit less, 30 centimeters. And you can see it's from sun, from the side coming, and it's light absorption more. Notice we already can absorb the grain here as well. And this is grain is happening because the lights absorb too much value. And after so many, it just stopped one. So we have this grain. And how I said before, in some cases, it's much easier. Like right here, we have a quality boost. And it's quality boost, what it actually does, it is perform two options in this case. One, it's increase how many times rays can bounce and calculate. And second, it's increase anti-aliasing. And anti-aliasing will analyze area around those elements and try to smooth them, create a little bit better gradients between contrast points. Well, it's a little bit more complex in a back scene, but in simple way explain it's actually what's happening here. And you can notice as we're going to do, it will be a little bit better. Notice how long it will take it, even in preview. And one thing I kind of don't like when it's done in preview, because right now we have it right here. All our applications slow down. You can see how it's slow. Even a refresh UI a little bit slow because it was taking time to calculate. Well, let's go put it back here. Again, that was just example, and it's work a little bit better this way. Okay. Now we'll look on some materials. We'll look on how the lights work and everything. Let's actually look on some clouds, what we can do here, because it's what we about. Okay, and if we look on our left side, right here we have it our cloud. If we right click with the button, and you can have it normal cloud layer. We can load it cloud layer that already pre-made for us from collections, meta clouds from preset if we have it. We also can create some primitives and other, but it's manipulations we can do later, because you can create your own shapes. And we have it a loaded meta cloud. So it's kind of very wide and big collection for us to work with. Well, let's start first with our layer. And we're going to create a layer. You'll notice as we enable, it's open our familiar atmosphere editor right here. And by the way, if preview quality as we're looking, it's not up to you, you want to have it a little bit better or a little bit faster, you can always right click on the menu with the main camera, and you can select preview quality. Currently at the standard, you can switch to the fast won't render everything, and you can notice we have it even like, see those dots? It's what I was saying, it's cutting off some of this, but it's quite a bit fast and less loaded in your computer. So if you work just with shape or positioning, this is maybe a better way to go. But also you can go all the way higher. You can go to the best. And the best is take forever to render on your preview, but it's give you best example of maybe translucent, transparent material. And sometimes it's maybe worth just to see the quality before you finish with this. Well, I'm going back to the standard for us, okay? Well, we created our layer, and we have it in atmosphere editor. By the way, I'm in advanced material, advanced editor. You can switch to the basic mode, but I do not recommend. I recommend stay in advanced mode. It gives you more ability of manipulations with there. And as we create it, we'll switch back right here on the tab. You see atmosphere editor. It automatically add for us fluffy canvas cloud. It's usually will add a last cloud you was using or default. So I was using the fluffy cloud. It's kind of remembering and uploading this. And also it's gone in a tab with the cloud material. In our screen, you can see we have it, the cloud layer also showing. And if we look in our viewer, side view, you can see we have it also. This is cloud layer showing for us. In our view, side view, we can increase how thickness. We can also move, slightly repositioning, even it's at infinity, but sometimes you maybe want to some clouds look better, a little bit on right, left, you can adjust this way, so we can manipulate with this. And of course it will become even more useful if we're going to select our clouds, and we're going to limit it to the zone. If we limit it to the zone by enable here, you'll notice it will take this area and kind of put them only in one specific area, our cloud, so you can actually work how much you want it. So in this case, you can observe and see how it's cut off. So take our infinity clouds and actually move them in creating this zone. It's very nice and useful if you like generic how the clouds work, but you want to create like one single. Right here you see the clouds only in one specific area, so this way you can create a nice patches of the clouds. And by the way, you can create another layers, make them zone as well, and move it around, so you can create very interesting effect. Just to give you kind of inspirational things, think about creating tornadoes this way. Think about create like a cloud with a rain just over one sad person, like in and out, you know, the person who always have clouds. Well, we don't need to worry right now about the zones. We'll come back to them maybe later. Well, let's go back here, and we have our cloud, the materials that we're selecting. Let's look a little bit closer on what properties we have it for those clouds. Well, clouds, color and density. And in color density, you'll notice density production. This is a fractal. And if we right click, edit functions, we actually can go and edit how the function is work here. So let's go right here. Let's have a little bit time to access our function editor. And I'm going to expand, because if you look, our function editor open as additional tab in the same window. And in here we can see we have our position. We have, this is our fractal, it's what I was using. And currently it's just a terrain Perl noise. So it's the same type of fractals. We can use it to create our terrains. We can use it here. And you can use it totally weird and bizarre type of the fractals. If you have my collections of the clouds, I have some, it's like a cones from space, something very weird. You can untwist it, create those. If you don't have that collections, you can download them as a pattern. And just let you know, it's very large collection, so you'll spend a lot of time playing. But right here we can select and we can change different type of the Perl noise. So we can even going and create like a crystal noise. And as a crystal noise, it will have those squares on top creating, so you can see how it's changed. This is fun and easiest way to modify shape of the clouds by working with those different noises. Of course, you can increase wavelength, you can increase how smooth you want it or how sharp edges. So you have all of this flexibility. It will take us days literally to go through all permutation, because how many of them there. So it will take us days and days to go over all of this type what we can create it. Personally, Voronoi altitude generals, those work very well. You can also see how the other guy created, but play with them. You also can make them dependent on other stuff. For example, if you look on altitude, we can assign altitude depend to the terrain under below. So you have it simulating shapes. You can also create additional relations to maybe more complex, like for example, a bigger clouds. For example, let's go just create another one. So we'll go to the fractals here. We'll go to the, well, let's go grainy fractal, yes, and we'll just go right here, put it 1. And we can also connect them together by utilizing the blend mode. So inside, let's go to our combiners, and we'll just simply have a blender, and we'll kind of connect one blender, and let's zoom in. Yes, I think it's a little bit kind of funny. And there you go. You can go ahead and we'll combine now two different algorithms, two different fractals in one. And of course, with blend, we can play like add max minimum. So for example, maximum total different clouds, and you can see how we change. It's just a fun way to do it. Well, this is one way. Let's go back to our advanced material tab. And this is how we work on dense productions. So it's a way the clouds will be more dense. Notice as we change, it's also change a little bit presentations here. Currently, it will see as a square. We can change this to have it round, flat, or any other view on this. So right here, it's cube. Let's go switch to the sphere. And there you go, we can preview as a sphere. It's up to you. This is just preview, does not do anything with functionality, just only how we can see the functions itself, what is presenting. Next, we have filters, and this is a cutoff. So right now it's going smooth. If you want have it very unusual and sharp, we'll just can switch this. We can put it one up here, create very sharp edges, and as we're doing, you'll see how it will start cut off. You can create actually very sharp cut off areas, which is very good if you're creating God rays, because what you want a very clear opening and very solid. You want to have this differential, and this is how it's work very well in this case. Okay, if we increase this way, it will be smoothness, and let's just move slightly, maybe like right there. There you go, and you can preview. Look how beautiful lighting work already with this. Okay, the filter help us work with this. Next to this, we have our function scale, where we can increase in different directions. And remember, X, Y, Z. Z is up in a view. So in this case, where we're going up right there, this is Z. And you can see it's a little bit higher. We can reduce, make it flatter or stretchy. But this is will apply not necessarily to the layer thickness. This is applied to the function and how they change. For example, you can see some elements right there have it on the top and some below. This is changing in a Z because we have it X, Y, and it's how they're building. So it does not representing thickness of the cloud layer. It's representing changing in a cloud layer, how fast it will happening on the directions we're going. So next to this, we have our cloud layer right here, details. And if we look, we have it general scaling for ours. We have it also roughness. It is how gradient or how it's moving from one to another will going. Variations, how fast it's change or how scale, think of the elements, how many of these happen. And uniformity, it is also distortion. So general, by manipulating with just these values, you can create very, very interesting adjustments to the whatever you already predefined. So it does not change necessarily shapes, but it's change a little bit adjustments in this case. Well, down below we have it our volumetric color material, and if we click, we can select edit different colors. And even it's look like maybe just one single color, it's actually not single color. You actually can change and create multiple colors. You can create colors depend on altitude. For this, you'll also need work with a function. So almost any time when you want to do something more advanced, you need to go work in the functions. And right here, example, we can click, and you'll notice on a function, as I click on a function, it's open for us, and we have it our density. Let's minimize, and we also can work with additional coloring in everything. Okay, there you go right here. We have it our volume, everything. Let me go back just showing. And this is functionality which will collect or connect to volumetric color. And you notice as I enable it is already checked, we cannot switch from here. We need to go inside and modify again our volumetric color through the functions. You could disconnect if you just left click on this, and it will be disconnect automatically. Right click, and you can see we go back to our original colors. If for some reason you always mess up, you just simple can click and reset colors, and it will go to your original. So don't worry if you're experimenting anything, you can always roll back. And if you like some of your settings, be sure you're going and you save it your cloud. So in this case, you can save right here by material, or you can also going to atmosphere and save from there your atmosphere specific settings. As well, if you go down below, you'll notice you'll have a new load and save. Same things you can save. So material, all cloud, or all atmosphere settings, depending on how you work and what portion or what a specific part of your settings you want to save it. So down below, we have a little bit more advanced options. We have it cloud modulations, and this is what's happening with altitude creation, high density, all these modulations, and they all can be function driven. So in some other videos they created before, we're using altitude offset and altitude effects on a Z by creating clouds going over the mountains. I don't know if you ever observe, like in real life, sometimes clouds come to the mountain and they not just stop, they kind of go a little bit above or going like around the mountains. So by using altitude offset, we can also specify some areas of the cloud going up or some areas going down. Well, for this one, we'll have a specific tutorial or video just to work with altitude offset when we focus just on these options and how it's work. This way you can create rolling clouds, what they call clouds that going over the terrain, kind of as a shape is terrain going. Also work very well if you want to create like a fog maybe or other things. So this way we'll use it with altitude offset on this case. Well, this is color and dense. If we're going next to larger scale, this will apply to planetary or to major. You know how you can create planet, or you take your camera way up in here, it's where you can modify and have a huge type of the scale. So the one apply teeny tiny, but if you want like tornado from the space look, or hurricane or something, big cloud, you can open here, take your image, preload it, and work this way. So in our case, we just gonna go for fun, select one, and let's, you can go and select any other, oops, right here. Let me place this out. And we can go and select and place it wherever we want it directly into our image. If you have a sequence of the image, you actually can preload this as a sequence of the image and pre-animate. So you can also change a little bit shape of this. All what you need to do when you have a sequential image, just name them 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Vue will recognize this sequence. It will see the as numeric is going, and it's ask you, do you want preloaded sequence? Just say yes, and you will have it inside here. Also, at this point, we'll have it our influence on density, limit wall effect. This is the edges of the image. And of course, you have it your own standard for the Vue type, delete, rotate, flip, inverse. So you have it all of this. As well, you have it latitude and longitude. This is will apply to the world positioning. Work very well if you have it like, for example, Google Earth or map, and you want specific just in the area preset of this. So you can also just put it those longitude, latitude, and will apply properly positioning for this. Well, let's go next to the lighting effect. And this is general how the light will populate or how it will work with the clouds or volumetric material in this case. And you'll notice as a lighting going, you have it all these different elements, but most important for us, it's a lighting model. And we have it two different ones. We have it volumetric 1 and 2. Second one is a little bit more popular. Flat one layer, you usually don't want to use this. It will ignore any Z, and usually you do this for very high, clouds where you don't see, but you want to create layers. So usually you will go between both of them. Second one is the latest, and it's probably what you want to use. You have it internal shadows. This is, if you look on this cloud, so as we're creating, you'll notice the cast shadows between each other. This is what internal shadows will create it. We'll have it also cast shadows, because if we look on the ground, our clouds cast shadows on the ground. We can modify some of those global settings later when we go into an atmosphere editor, but this is more kind of related to specific cloud, because maybe you have it 2-3 different layers of the cloud, and one can cast more permanent shadows, other ones cannot. By the way, the clouds by themselves can cast also shadows on each other, so they can interact between each other as well. Where you have it your ambient lighting, you have it force ambient lighting if you have it, and below we actually have the colors we can select. I use it sometimes, take this cloud just for fun, showing the planet expand, and I'm using sky ambient and color lighting. Again, we have a function, so we can modify, we can make gradients. You don't just strict to one specific color. And I was creating a nebulous. You can see my other videos. I'll put link down below for you if you want it to check this out. And it's we create this colorful, beautiful nebulous in a space, and it's what I was utilizing by these colors. Of course, you can modify here as well. You can go select and set, what I want, like this color example, or maybe bluish. So this is your one color, and you have a sky, and you have it also the sun. So, for example, best way to play, probably select like a cold and warm color, so you can play between different colors in this case, and you'll have it kind of very interesting effect. Again, if you don't like it, you can reset them as well, but this way with the different colors, ambient and sun, you can add a little bit more density. And in our case, the density of the cloud, in this case representing by the shadows and highlights, because we don't really see 3D. Yes, it's a three-dimensional world and two-dimensional representation. For us, the lighting, shadows and highlights, it's what give it us shapes, and it's what we're doing. Look how already the clouds look quite a bit interesting and different from our original. We also can change on the global It is turbulence, rotation, cycling. This will apply to changing function, but it's in the global areas. They work a little bit nice if you use the image example and you see a repetition pattern, you can change. And just generally, you can create here, like, rotation on a tornado or some other thing. So you can enable the functions, you can edit, and you can see how it will modify as well. This one, by the way, global, will work very interesting if you limit it to cloud zone. So you can play with those on a limited cloud zone, and you can see a little bit more in a local way how it will create and what does those effect will produce. Again, if you remember, by enabling this, we have it right here, just specific area for our cloud zone, and we can modify. You know what? I should take my camera and look a little bit up in the sky, less on the ground, more on the clouds. And there we can see this is our cloud. We just created kind of weird looking. Notice how it's very grainy because our lights, we add some options to remember those grainies, and light does not propagate or calculate properly, so we'll need work on that one. Okay, right here we have some options. You also have a dissolved near object. This is important if your cloud sitting, like for example, on top of the mountain, and you don't want really going cloud and just stuck and you can see hard edge on terrain. If you do dissolve near object, it will have it not removed, but it's soft kind of dissipation. So it will create this nice from solid going more to a fog kind of haze things. Very useful if you want to put clouds around like mountains or other areas. Don't use it if you want fog on a low level because it will kind of remove density of the fog, and you will have it like why my fog is not there. Yes, because if you enable dissolve near object, of course it will reduce some of the density. You don't want to do this. So this is kind of very simple way. And notice right on the top we have our volumetric material. So you can try different, but you cannot mix volumetric materials with other materials. But general, this is what we can do. Some other properties will available for the new type of the clouds. Well, we'll touch a little bit later. But here's a kind of individual clouds. So if we're going back to our atmosphere editor, you'll notice our clouds still on top, but we also have it global settings. Like for example, we have it global settings for the scale. So we can modify, we can increase scale, and it will affect all our clouds, and it's increase function. This, you remember we did this mix function ones, fractal, so it will increase this one, increase some other properties. So this is global scaling up and down. You can kind of play with this. Altitude positioning, we could change altitude by simply drag inside the side windows, or you can go and change altitude here, and height as well. So we can change all of this. And you notice height, we can just change height by drag and drop or by the numbers. It's up to you, whatever you prefer the best to do it. Well, I'm going to just shrink a little bit down and bring lower so we can preview more interesting here. We'll have it also cover. It's how much dense or how much of the clouds will going around. So we can select 100% cover. And as we're doing this, you can see it will populate almost everything. Well, some interesting things about these numbers, even you still have it like 100% or other things, in many cases you actually can open and type even higher number to this, and it will take it. Like for example, you can see density 328%. If you're using slider will go only up to 100, so slider won't go a little bit more. But if you click on this and type, you can increase density, you can increase other stuff. By the way, you see how it's stretching. It's because remember I enable rotation, and that's what it actually does. It's kind of rotate around there. So semi-tornado-y look on this case. Well, I don't want to have it this high, so I'm going to set cover 25%. So it will reduce some of this, and we can see right here, you can see true kind of nicer already done this way. We have our density. It's most time you'll notice in Vue they like use a density versus opacity because how rendering going on. I No, it will take a little bit longer, but I do like my density a little bit lower because I think it's created a little bit better for light pass through, more fluffy. It's a personal reference, but this is what usually I do. In some cases, I put a density like to 2-3%. So I just want something on a sky, some, an uneven sky, because it's what in reality, and that is what create for us. Opacity, similar things. It's how much you have an opacity and density. So one, it's when light coming, how fast absorbing, and another, it's how light can pass through all the way. So that usually your opacity, I think about 100 or about 50 should work just fine in this case. Sharpness on the edges, it is how smooth happening from the darker to lighter, or lighter to darker point. This gradient, so it's applied this. And same as a feathering, how far it will expand. So we're going to decrease our sharpness, feathering, detail amount. It is, you remember when it's a greenness and it's add those kind of small details around. This is actually what it does. It's add gringiness kind of more to this, to elements. So you're reducing some of the blending. For the clouds, a simple rule with the details amount. The higher up, less details. Yes, lower clouds, you want more details, because it's what in real. When you have it closer, you can see more details. It's what you want to do. Or if you have it very high, you want lower details. So I will just leave it as default here. Altitude variations, I like this. What it does, it is from the middle of the clouds to the top, it will increase these variations from top. So it does not go down, but it's from this side and up, it will increase or decrease. So usually I even pop up altitude variations quite a bit, and it will add interesting things to the top of the cloud. Totally personal preference, okay? But I just like how it's look, and it's added some interesting effect to us as well. Ambient lighting, this effect, and you can preview right here as we're changing in our windows. Do you want less ambient lighting, apply more, and it depend on your terrain. It will also affect. For example, if you have a cloud that going over a glowing lava, you maybe want to increase ambient lighting because it will give it this red glowish. Or if you would want less and more simple, you maybe want to reduce. So you can play with this. Let's go ahead, pop up less lighting, and shadows, how much shadows it will affecting. You remember we had shadows before. This is more on a global level. And I said before, the clouds have internal shadows, other things, but this is the how general global shadow level will apply to the ground or to other objects. Well, we can pop up on this. And let's preview, see how is our cloud come up right now. Well, it's kind of creating nice, and you can see it's still rendering. This is what problems sometimes take a long time to render on this. By the way, we're using the photometric spectral type of atmosphere lighting in this case. Well, we'll look on some properties. Below we have cloud animations. In Vue by default, all cloud is animated. So if we're making animations, you'll notice on the directions, it's mean from left to right in our screen, the clouds start moving, start changing. This kind of very cool about this, because it's give it extra very easy way to create beautiful cloud animations. You can increase velocity and rate of change, so how fast the cloud will change. Very nice way. And this will apply also if, for example, you can create a special zone, contract a zone, put it in specific areas, and put it just over like chimney. You can actually make the steam or smoke coming out of chimney of the house with localization. So this is kind of fun way to do it. Well, let me look on one thing right here. If you look on the screen, you have this hard line, you see, and it's because how the zone and cloud happening. General, because inside the cloud probably we had very high dense here, and its point is to reach our end of our zone, and it's create this. If we want smooth, we just need to take fallout and just increase a little bit fallout, so it will create a little bit smoother. For example, 40% in this case, and okay, and that will increase. Also, if we look on our top, you can see this area, and it's from dense, and this is fallout. So it's kind of visual, showing you what its transitions will happen when you modify this. Okay, So we'll look on some of the properties of the clouds. We'll look on some limited cloud zones and other effect. So let's look right now on optimizations, how we can make it look better. Well, I'm going to go ahead, click OK, and we have right here our cloud layer, which is kind of fun creation. Okay, let me actually take and this shrink just a little bit. There you go. And reason why I want to shrink the less zone, faster to render. Yes, for our preview. Well, we did kind of fun with this, with the clouds, with the zone. Well, what's happening when you render? Sometimes you want to have it very complex sky. You want to have it very interesting sky. And if you have too many of these objects, then it will take a lot of time to render, take a lot of time to set up. So what I like to do, I like to pre-create some of those skies, render them, and reuse. And the reason is why. Because if we look, we have our hero cloud. And hero cloud is usually what we have up front. It's look very nice, very beautiful. And it's where our attention. But we have a lot of sky in the background. And they can be look very nice, but they're not our hero. Not our main things where we have our attention. So in this case, I can pre-render some sky and use them after as a HDRI or as a sky dome. And you not necessarily can use this, don't need to use them for the games, for the Unreal, Unity, for DAS, for other things. You can also use them inside the Vue. And it's a very simple way to do it. So let's say right here, I have it and I disable my fluffy cloud. We're going to our atmosphere editor, and in atmosphere editor I'm going to our clouds, and we'll go and click to preload clouds. Notice we have all these different clouds, including some of the smart new clouds, which we'll need to look a little bit later about this, maybe in another video, because this is getting too long, this video. But let's select some very simple clouds like this example, and I'm just selecting very low quality clouds. Yes, so we have a cover. We'll reduce density a little bit. Notice because density is general applied, but because it's not volumetric, we don't have a opacity on them, and we'll just leave it like this. So for example, this is your backdrop. The next what we need to do is go inside the render, and here's the render properties. We want to go click on panoramic render, and it says which not level you want to level. Yes, let's level our camera, and then we can render 360. But here's a couple tricks. One, when you render, be sure we want to render the higher quality, because right here what we see, this is a 1080, and you want to use it probably much higher resolution, because if you have a low resolution, your clouds on background get blurry and other things, and depend what you want to do, maybe that is okay with you. But if you want higher quality, you probably want to go and increase your resolution. So I'm going with the 8000 pixels, very high. I don't need it informational strip here, just this. No stereoscopic. Stereoscopic will create two cameras and parallax, so we don't need it, which is, you can create stereoscopic, and I did it for VR, which is kind of cool because you can create your all like dome scenery, yes, and render stereoscopic, put it your VR and just look around. That's look very cool. And next you want to probably just go click final or a different quality. Again, remember, if you want to have a PyTracer cycle, which is in a Blender, or you want to create with your personal adjustments, you can go to user settings, modify, but for now I'll just have it final. I don't need motion blur, so it's just final will work. Turn on render to screen so I can preview. I think all of these properties is work just fine. You can also create alpha and other relighting. But before actually I click render, well, let me go click OK. But before I click render, one more interesting tip right here. So notice as we're creating, and we have a sun right there visible. It's not bad if you want to have it sun, but if you want to take this map and reuse in your other settings with your different sun position and everything, then you want to go to atmosphere editor. You want to go to sun details here, and you want actually hide. No visible sun, no visible corona. So it will erase. You still have some lighting going from some specific directions. And to disable this, we actually need to go inside the glow and reduce some of the glowing intensity. So that will remove it. And you can see it's a sky without sun. So in this case, when we next time import it, we can use the sun, put it in different position, and we'll have it better lighting. Of course, the sun and light direction still be there. Yes. So and that is kind of pay attention if you have a closer object and then the cast shadows and everything. But general, because we're looking just for the sky and everything, that should work just fine with us. Of course, you can play a little bit more maybe with the haze, fog. You can create all these additional fun things that will create a little bit more integration. But notice right there, remember, no sun, no glowing. This will work very well. After you're done with this, just go ahead, click render. Depend on resolution and other things. It may take longer, shorter on your machine to render. And remember, I'm rendering 8,000 pixels, yes. But because I don't have a real volumetric materials there, my other cloud was disabled, if you remember. And it should be flat, so it should be render quite a bit faster. Right here, we see it's a pre-pass going. And after pre-pass is done, this is main render. And of course, this is a flat clouds, everything, and then look how fast it's going. So it will be perfect backdrop. And if you have volumetric clouds, if they're far away and kind of this, they will render fast as well. But even they're not very fast render, you maybe leave it overnight to create your scenery. Next time, when you start creating and you're using this DOM loading in your project, then you don't need to worry about rendering because it will be as an image on a background and the lighting and everything will be used. So kind of save you a lot of time this way. Okay, so render is completed. Let's see, after exposure off. I don't like after exposure. There's our scenery. We did render 360, so we render everything. You don't necessarily need it if you want just the sky. You can go with 160 on the upper dome render if you need it. Well, after you're done, you probably want to save it. And this is another way you need to pay attention. You don't want to save as JPEG. You actually want to go and save as high dynamic range, HDRI, or EXR. Those formats will have it the more extended informations of the lighting. So the 32-bit, they have it way more information. It's what we wanted. So usually I go as save as HDRI. And you can name whatever you want it, add your options, all the stuff. I think this will work. We'll click OK. And right here you have it, keep tone mapping, disable. If we want disable, because keep, it will take a 32-bit, it squish it. We don't want, we want just disable tone mapping. So it's a raw image save for us. Well, right here we save our image. Let's take a second. And let me show you other things also before we start kind of looking how to use. We have it, click on the render, and notice because we select panoramic, when we close and open, it's come up with options, says what angle, and you can here, you can modify. Remember what you want, spherical, you want to create VR 360, cube, all these different versions, so you can go around. General, we have it 360 on the horizontal, and you can have it just maybe 180, like this set on horizontal. Let's click OK, and then you can manage and manipulate what angles you want to render on the horizontal. Sorry, it's 180 flat up front of us, or we can go and modify. Let's go 360 all around us, and a spherical render like this. We can have it 180 top one. So in this case, we render some other domes. So it just you have options to modify which way you want to render. Okay, let me disable panoramic. Well, yeah, let's disable panoramic on this case. We'll click OK. To use those domes, you need to go inside the atmosphere editor, and we want to go inside, right here, our atmosphere editor, environmental map. And right there, we can go and download some of those environmental maps we wanted. This is not necessarily backdrop maps. This is environmental maps of the lighting reflections, and illuminations. So to do this, we'll just need enable, and let's go click and navigate to the place where we save it. So right here, my atmospheres, I'm going to click open, and notice this comment says, do you want automatically stop since lighting image? Yeah, sure, let's go do everything. And it's by default preload them inside here. I can go and modify some of these areas. I can go and separate illumination maps, everything. Notice a little bit dark because we probably want to increase our exposure. And you can play with different elements how you wanted this preview. This is our lighting, yes. So this is one way. We can play with lights a little bit more later. But also, if you go click double on a camera, and inside the camera you have it backdrop. So let's go click on a backdrop. It will open option for us. Let's click option, use it backdrop, and we'll go to navigate, same things. And in some cases, it will may ask you like, hey, do you want to use it flat image or other things? Right here we have a zoom, open GL, so we can play with those. Override atmosphere settings if you need it. And you can see right here preview, so we preloaded. This is change on atmospheres, not necessarily lighting on the ground. And lighting on the ground, again, this is will go to your atmosphere editor and going inside your illumination maps and other things. Well, let's go just pop up a little bit better on illuminations. There you go. We can also map ground maps, ignore atmosphere on the map. So we can play with a lot of different options here. And you can see we have our backdrop, we have our normal lights available, and we still have our sunlight available for us to play around. Notice we have our backdrop, and backdrop right now, it's a 160. Remember what we created. So we probably want to expand or zoom in to create specific ways for our backdrop. Another things with a backdrop, sometimes I kind of don't like it, because if we rotate our camera around, notice the backdrop still kind of same going with us. So if we're using background through the camera, it's not the always best solution. So sometimes it's best solution just using as environmental. Okay, let me select right here and we'll cover it. Well, we'll do a little bit more right now. We're already almost hour of recording, and I want kind of a little bit cut off on this one. You can see how much more stuff we can do with this. So in the next videos, we're going to use the actual practical in this. This was a little bit showing theory, how it's work, what are we settings. We did not even touch on the special photons or light distribution, which is how to improve on this case. But we will, in the next video, let's go do more practical. Let's go actually set up, creating DOM, and just create our project with this from beginning to end, including render and including some adjustments. So, and for this, be sure you if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure you click subscribe, click all the notifications, everything. And if you just have this video as a part of the special pack that I'm working for the VU, then just go watch another video. It should be there.